Larkin, who meets Douglas Lima for the Bellator 170-pound title, June 24th, right here at MSG. Lorenz, it's good to see you. I feel like just a couple of weeks ago I see you at a UFC event. Now here you are, Bellator pay-per-view. This is kind of nuts.
It doesn't make sense, does it? No, man, I'm pumped. It's how things have just happened, in these past 7 months. It's been crazy.
It's almost amazing because I think for a while you were getting a little impatient, your management team was getting impatient, like, okay, what's going on here? And now the timing of it all, because if you would have signed earlier and maybe debuted in, say, January or so, maybe this opportunity isn't, presented to you. Now here you are. Do you think of things that way? Like, in hindsight, it's amazing how all the stars align.
Yeah, the whole process was crazy. Me going months and months, with nothing really on the table. And it all really boiled down to, my team has been talking with Bellator back and forth, and it really just boiled down to, I was going to Manchester not too long ago, and I got on the phone with Scott. A 30-minute conversation turned to a signed deal, and it was just easy as that.
I feel like the lesson here is we don't really need managers. You can do it yourself. Who's Adi Attar, right?
Right. What does he do?
Yeah. I'm just kidding. Adi's a great guy. And you said at the press conference that you were surprised that they gave you this opportunity, this title shot right off the bat. What were you thinking that they were going to give you?
I'm not too sure. I was thinking somebody in the top 10. I just didn't know what or who or not what, but who. I guess there's been a lot of talks of that's why I signed the contract. That was never. There was no big details in the contract. It was pretty much just. Do you want to fight for us? Yeah, and let's work it out. There's no title implications or anything like that. So, it was just the perfect timing, just like you were saying. And I got a call 2 weeks ago and said, are you ready to fight? I said, yep. And they said, how about MSG, June 24th against Lima? And I was like, Douglas Lima? And they're like, yeah. I was like, do I even need to reply? Do you need to answer? So it's crazy how everything is working out.
How much did you know about Lima when you were fighting in the UFC? Have you watched him? Are you familiar with him?
That's the thing. I've watched Bellator cards. I tend to watch other cards. Other than UFC cards. But yeah, I've watched his fights. And I've always paid attention to what's kind of going on. Not deep attention, but I always knew what the top guys were, in Bellator. So, I've watched his fights, and they're exciting, and he brings it just like I bring it. So that's why I was so pumped to be on Madison Square Garden on pay-per-view, and just our two styles that are going to clash, here. It's going to be crazy.
I mentioned this to him earlier. When the Chael fight was announced, the co-main event with Fedor and Mitrione was announced, and even the Chandler fight, there's always criticism. People are saying, these guys are too old. Who's Brent Primus, all this stuff. But with your fight, it was universally praised. Oh, there's no way this can be a bad fight. Did you see that? And does that kind of bring some pressure to the table? Like, oh man, I really have to live up to something here because this is the fight that all the hardcores are talking about.
Mm-hmm. Well, the good thing about the hardcores, is I've never tried to go in there and be exciting. Okay. And I've never tried to say, this fight, I need to do this because they need to talk about it. I just always, anytime I fight, I just come to fight, So I think that's good about my style, and that's what's got me to this point, in my career. And I feel like he's the same way. I've never seen him do anything out of the norm, I just feel like that's just his fighting style. That's what makes him exciting, is just him going out there and fighting. And I think it's just both. It's good both ways because we're just going to go in there and fight, and it's going to make for one of the most exciting fights on the card.
Since coming over to Bellator, since getting this opportunity on this card, have you heard from a lot of people in other organizations, in particular the UFC, saying, "Oh, what's it been like? Why'd you choose them? How was the process?" Have you heard from other fighters?
No, not so much. Some fans, I guess some fans were a little disappointed, but it's been all welcoming. It's been all good so far. I mean, who's to say, in the future? But everything right now has been hunky dory.
I was saying fans wondering, fighters wondering, being interested, what's it been like? Getting this opportunity, the process with Scott, things like that, for their own personal interest.
Oh, okay. No, not yet. But, I wouldn't be opposed to telling them, my thing is, I never sugarcoat shit. It's all my talks are from experience. What I've experienced, not speculations or anything like that. So, for right now, if any fighter comes to talk to me, it's nothing but good stuff. And I haven't had no problems, and the staff has been just great to me. And so now, it's just time to fight. It's ridiculous, man.
I can't imagine you'd be very upset with this whole situation. Here we are, MSG.
No, I can't complain. It's what can you complain about?
One last thing, I've always wanted to ask you this: when you square off, historically, you don't look at your opponent. Why is that?
My thing is, I've always done it because I always have the thought of, there's no reason to be tough. I just square off just for respect. And there's no reason for me to be tough or get in a guy's face or yell shit at him because I'm gonna fight you. You know what I mean? And I've always been like that even since I've been young. When I get real hot, when I was real hot-headed, I have to fight you. It was just one of those things where I wasn't cool until we fought. So that's the same way here. I mean,